Hello, my name is Jessica Potts and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to learn how to single crochet. We are going to take our time, so don't worry if you've never crocheted before or even know how to hold a crochet hook, because we are going to do this step by step. For beginners, I would suggest a 5mm hook, or this one is also known as a US, let me find it, a USH, but it's actually better to go by the millimeters just because the USH can be different. So it's best to go by the millimeters, and this one's a 5mm, which is best to begin with. We're going to use, this is teal yarn. And this one is a medium 4 or a worsted weight of 4. But it took me a while on this one to find it, but it's the color teal from Mainstays. That's where this one's from. There it is. So that's what we're going to use today. And keep in mind, when you're beginning, you want to use a soft yarn, but you don't want to use one that is slippery. This is soft. This is just acrylic yarn. And first, we're going to make a slip knot. So out of my last video, let me zoom out a little bit. So with my last video, we kind of had a quick introduction. So if you put the yarn across your palm and then gently wrap over, and then take that back loop and bring it forward, and then grab onto the yarn gently. You don't want to pinch hard. Grab this new back loop and pull it over, and then slide up. That's how you make a slip knot. And the reason why it's called a slip knot is because if you notice, it does slide. Let's try that again. So put it over, turn your hand around. So now that you have that part of the yarn over your pointer, and then gently wrap around again. Then take that back loop, lay it just in front, and then gently hold on to the yarn. Take that new back loop, and see how you can easily put your finger in there. So you want it loose to be able to bring it over your pointer. You just switch hands and pull up. The other way was to hold the end of the yarn in your other hand and gently go around, come in front of this part of the yarn, and you want to make an X. And then you want to hold that with your middle finger and thumb. And then with this part of the yarn, this is what we'll call the working yarn. So with the working yarn, we're going to continue in the same direction and gently go over, and then hold on to both yarns. Take that back loop and bring it over. Let's do it one more time. So you want to hold this and gently go over and cross. So see, there's an X right there. And then you want to take your fingers and hold that, because you want this, you want to be able to work with this now. And same direction, but go in front. So you want it wrapped around loosely. See? Wrapped around loosely on your finger, and then you want to hold it loosely. And then grab that back loop and up and over and slide. Now we want to take our crocheting hook and go ahead and put it in that loop. And see how I have a long tail right there? I'm going to call this the tail. So I have a long tail right there. What we're going to do is work on our foundation chain. And see that space right there? Right there between the loop of the yarn and where the hook is. You want a space right there so it makes it easy for the hook to slide in and out of those loops. So what we're going to start working on is what's called the foundation chain. In most crocheting projects, you need a foundation chain. So we're going to practice doing 15. So we're going to work on 15 chains. And before we do that, how to hold a crochet hook. I hold mine more in a fist grip because it's comfortable for me. Or you can hold it in a pencil grip if that's comfortable for you. So there's the fist grip or the pencil grip. And then what I do is I go under the pinky, over the ring finger, under the middle finger, over the pointer. That's how I hold my yarn. It's under the pinky, over the ring finger, under the middle finger, over the pointer. Now to create a foundation chain, we are going to what's called yarn over. So what you want to do is take your working yarn and have it wrapped loosely around your fingers, and then you want to hold the tail in your other hand because you want to hold that to keep it steady, and that kind of helps pull it down. And then what you want to do is go down and behind the hook. That's called a yarn over. We'll do that again. So you want to go down, behind, and around. That's called a yarn over. And then this yarn right here, this piece, you want to put under the hook. And this loop right here, we want to be able to get over the hook. So see how that goes right in there? And then you turn your hook to fit in that V. So you want that hook to fit in that V. So we're sliding the hook and going through that loop where the hook part is facing down to fit in that V. Then you turn your hook back up and you go behind and around. Remember, you want this to go under the hook. And sorry, I switched hands. Now I'm holding the tail with that first chain in my working hand, the one holding the yarn, with my middle finger and my thumb. Once again, you want to have a space right there to be able to get that hook through, because if it's too tight, there is no space to put that hook through. So you want to be able to have some space. So we turn the hook down to fit in that V, and we pull through. That's chain 2. And then once again we go behind the hook and up and over. Turn your hook down, pull through, and that's chain 3. Yarn over, turn your hook down to go through that space, and that's 4. Make sure it's getting caught there, and if you accidentally do that, just pull back and turn your hook, because it will grab this piece of yarn right here. So turn that hook and pull through that loop. And that's what it's going to start looking like. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one here is 5. Once again, we want to go behind the hook and wrap it around for a yarn over. Turn the hook down through that space, and that's 6. Wrap around, 7, behind, turn your hook down, 8, behind, wrap around, make sure that part goes, the yarn goes under the hook, wrap around, turn that hook, and we're at 10. So real quick before we finish the last 5 is you want to try and find the V shape. So let's start here. So see where that yarn is sliding through? That would be a chain 1. And then see how there's kind of a, what looks like it could be a loop right there. Let me see if I can zoom in some more. So see where they join right there at the end? That would be chain 2. Where they join, so it makes kind of a V shape. That's 3. Right here, that's 4. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and where the knot is, that also counts, so that's 10. Let's finish the last 5. So I'm going to weave the yarn around my fingers again, and let's finish. So I'm going to do this a little different with the last 5 because I've been holding my pointer out, and you may not be able to do that. So what you could also do is take your working hand and wrap it around, and then turn your hook. So that's 11. So you can wrap it around if that's easier to start with. 12. Wrap, always remember, go behind. So go behind and wrap around. And that's 13. Behind and wrap around. 14. 15. So that's a chain of 15. But that last chain that we did, we're going to consider is our turning chain, because you cannot work in that. Reason you cannot work in that, because if you go in to make your first single crochet, you just undid it. So that we're going to call our turning chain, and I'll show you here in a little bit. So now we're going to continue doing single crochets. So even though we have a chain of 15, we're going to have 14 single crochets because we do not count that last chain. Remember, if you find yourself struggling, you can always pause and rewind the video. But we're going to continue on. So in chain 2, so chain 1, sometimes it'll look small. Let's see if I can actually zoom in. So chain 1 is where the yarn is at. So chain 2 is the one next to it. Remember, kind of look for that V in that space right there. That's where we are going to put our hook. So go ahead and slide that hook through, and then same thing, you want to go up and over. You always want to hold your work when you're beginning with the foundation chain, and then you want to turn that hook, because remember, we always want this part here in that little V space, because if you don't turn it, or if you turn it too much, it's not going to go through. You want to be able to slide that through that space, and then you have 1, 2 loops. Then you want to go back behind, wrap around. Now you want to have this yarn right here under the hook, and you want to be able to slide both these loops off the hook. And once again, you want some space in those loops to get it through. So let's try that again. See that space right there? Back up a little bit. So see that big space? That's the one that we just worked in. That's our first single crochet. So when we want to go to the next space. And remember, wrap from behind and over, or this way. It's always behind and over. And pull through, and then behind and over. Turn your hook. And see, there's that space right there. We just worked in that one. So we want to go to that little tiny space that you're seeing in that next chain. And put your hook through. And yarn this way. You just want to lay it on top. Turn your hook to fit that space. And pull through, and then yarn over and turn your hook and pull through both loops. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, once again, that big space we just did. So we want to go into the next one. Remember, if they're together right there, kind of making it look like a V, that's your chain. You want it right here. And pull through. And then you want to yarn over and pull through that chain to get the 2 loops, and then yarn over, turn your hook, and we just made another single crochet. And we'll just keep going and finishing this foundation chain. Yarn over and pull through. Remember, you don't want to go in this part because we just did that big space. We want to go to the chain right next to it. And then yarn over, turn your hook and pull through. I'm going slow so that hopefully this makes sense. And I am doing this step by step because these videos are for all ages. For anybody who wants to learn how to crochet. So you just want to go into that little space right there. Then yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through. Pull through. And remember, always turn your hook to work with you. Yarn over, turn your hook, fit through those spaces, and pull through. Yarn over, turn your hook, yarn over, and turn your hook to pull through. We've almost finished row 1. Yarn over, and that is row 1. So let me show you something. See those little V's right there? So starting with this one, we do count this one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. See how they come together right here at the end? That's a stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and this one at the very end is 14. Now what do we do from here is we want to chain 1. So wrap from behind, up and over, turn your hook, slide through that 1 loop, and that's your chain 1. You want that because when you turn your work, you're working in that very first single crochet space right there. So important to have that chain 1. So we're working in that first single crochet. You yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. And we just repeat this all the way down to the end. So I'll do a few more. So through that V, and then yarn over, pull that yarn through. You have 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. Once again, you want to go in that top space right there. Go through, and then pull it through, yarn over, and pull through both. See that space on the top? That's where I want to go next, and I'll show you this way. Remember, you want that full V on there. So you want both straps of that single crochet from the previous row on there. And then yarn over, turn your hook, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. And we'll just keep doing that all the way to the end. This one's a little tight, but we can still make it work. Remember, you can use your hand if that's better to begin with, and then pull through. Use your hand to wrap around towards you. So you want to bring that yarn towards you, and then pull through. What I'm doing is I'm using my middle finger to help wrap it around. And I'm also moving my hook at the same time. This is how I'm doing this. So kind of working with both my hands and wrapping it around. Or you can have your finger out, grab that yarn, pull through, wrap around, and pull through both loops. So there's a few different ways here that you can practice with single crochet. Or once again, you can just wrap it around and then wrap around. Or you can actually use the hook instead of your hand. So see how I have the working yarn close to the work? And then when I put the hook through, it's already wrapped over. And then I just have to pull through. And then moving my hook, I just put it under the yarn. So some different ways that you can practice and see what works best for you. We have 2 more to go. See, 1, 2. And then pull through. And then 1 more. If you need to kind of pull that V up a little bit, you can. And then just put it in that space. Make sure that both stitches are on top. So you want both of those on top. And then once again, just wrap around, pull through, wrap around, pull through. And that's row 2 of single crochet. So we have 1, 2. What also helps me is a counter. Let me see if I can dig that out. So we can use our row counter. Let me clear that out first. So we can go, we did row 1 and we just finished row 2. So that means you'll be getting row 3 if you're using a counter. What also helps me keep track is, we just finished this, right? So it's facing this way. This tail helps me keep track of my odd and even rows. So row 2, the working yarn is over here. So that means that it's an even row. Let's see. Okay. And then we chain 1, because you always chain 1 at the end. And then turn our work. And remember, you want to go into that very first space right there. With every row. But then when you get to the end of this, that working yarn that we're over here with right now, once it's over here, that'll be row 3, which lines up with your tail. Here, I'll show you. So remember, you want to go in this space, just where that V is, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. That space right there. And you do have 1 more. And you just completed row 3, which lines up with your tail. Great job creating those single crochets and making 2 rows. You did it. You just learned how to single crochet. And keep practicing, and I'll see you on the next video.